Welcome to Mastering the Art of Success. I'm your host, Debbie DiMaggio. We are here today with Nick Coniglio and Marnie Stockman. Welcome, you guys.
Thanks for
Happy to
having
be here,
us.
Debbie.
So happy to have you. First time with three of us on one, so I'll try not to interrupt. So let me properly introduce you. So you guys go by the title Leadership Geeks, Not Gurus. Nick Coniglio and Marnie Stockman are entrepreneurs, leadership geeks, not gurus, and co-authors of The Business of You and Lead It Like Lasso. Nick is a seasoned technology veteran with more than 30 years of experience in the ever-evolving IT landscape. Over his career, he's worn nearly every hat imaginable, from programmer to team lead, corporate executive to tech startup entrepreneur. Over the last 2 decades, Nick helped lead 4 companies through periods of rapid growth, each resulting in successful exits. Marnie began her career as a high school math teacher before moving into EdTech, where she earned her doctorate in educational leadership and led teams in customer service and leadership development. Alongside Nick and the 2 other co-founders, she helped build, scale, and sell a software company for 8 figures in just 3 years. Together, they don't just teach leadership, they've lived it. As the authors of Lead It Like Lasso, Nick and Marnie built a global leadership community of more than 30,000 people, launched a successful masterclass, and sold over 30,000 copies of their book without a traditional publisher. They know how to market ideas, build engaged audiences, and turn books into movements. From building and selling an 8 figure SaaS company to developing thousands of leaders through books, speaking, consulting, and education, Nick and Marnie are on a mission to redefine how people think about leadership, careers, and personal ownership. They're not just writing another book, they're launching a framework for how work really works now. Wow. Okay, that's impressive. I've
That's
never
awesome.
having 2 people and all of everything that you guys do is incredible. So I guess I'll ask a question and you guys could choose who to answer. So, well, first of all, let's start with first of all, are you guys married or what's your relationship?
We are married, but not to each other. So
Okay.
Nick and his wife and son live in Atlanta, and my husband and I, and my 2 adult kids who don't live in the house anymore, live in Maryland.
Okay, just had to get the lay of the land. Okay, so let's start with you, Marnie. So when you were growing up, and where did you grow up? And when you went to college and you were going through life, did you know where you'd be today when you started your journey early on?
Oh, for sure not. I mean, I can remember as early, well, even earlier, but in second grade, I for sure was telling people I would be a math teacher. So no
Wow.
question, I saw that part of my path coming. Now I was always told I was that bossy little one. So I don't think it's shocking. One of the things that Nick and I talk about is kind of how you do anything is how you do everything. So
Uh-huh.
now it's not surprising, but for sure, when I give presentations, if I say I started out as a high school math teacher and then I was the CEO of an IT SaaS company, and I'll say like because that's the natural progression. They laugh, thinking,
Right.
"No, it's not gonna be. That's not how that happens."
Absolutely. So, Nick, go ahead and answer that question.
Yeah, so I was very different when I was younger. I grew up in New York. I was the type that was shy, introverted, quiet, didn't really um, speak a word really to anybody. And
Wow.
to my surprise, I've ended up leading presentations, keynotes, leading people. So very different career outcome than where I would have envisioned I would have been when I was younger. Um, it really started, it started when I got out of school. I was a computer science major. I started programming, and I took a job in a consulting role right after that, and that really shifted my mindset in terms of um, how to the advantage of being able to communicate with people. Of all things, you think that would be so blatantly obvious. Young 21, 22-year-old me, that wasn't the case. But yeah, I figured it out pretty quickly. I was really good functionally at what I did, and I kept on getting promoted, and I was that accidental leader. And I failed. Uh, I failed pretty hard, and I was always fascinated and frustrated, by the fact that I was never really formally trained on how to lead and how I eventually got to a point where I was pretty successful with it. And that's kind of where I'm at right now, and I love talking about it.
Well, I love to hear it. So, my last guest talked about leadership. It was a leadership conversation. So, how did you, you were quiet, you weren't vocal. How did you what's the magic that turned you from being so introverted and quiet to actually speaking on stage and leading people with success?
I think it's for the most part, and we talk a lot about this in both of our books, but it's understanding that that was okay. That's who I was as a person, and I think when I was younger, there was always, okay, from my parents to my managers, you got to be a different person, and you gotta speak and be heard and things like that. And I really read that the wrong way, and wasn't until later that I figured out, okay, you know what? That's not me. I have a lot of introverted tendencies, but that in itself is a power, right? That is something that means I'm probably better at listening for things, and I've learned to kind of lean on the strengths of who I am as a person, and that in turn gives you more confidence to speak up. It's a weird cycle, but to me, it's everything with anybody who I've ever seen successful. It is okay. They realize truly who they are as a person. That breeds confidence, and then it also allows you to see that everybody is a little bit different and see into how to best motivate them or understand what demotivates them. And I think that's been a lesson that was a long term time learning for me, but that was a very important lesson, and I think it's one that I've seen really be a true indicator of people being successful leading others or not.
What was your, sorry, we'll get to Marnie in a minute. You said you failed in your leadership, and how did you pivot from that? And what happened when you said you failed?
Well, I think I had a lack of respect, and I think
Mm,
the reason for that was I remember distinctly. There's a couple of occasions where I was trying to be somebody who I wasn't, right?
mm,
And it really came down to the point that I was more command and control, telling people what to do, because
mm,
that's what I was used to. That's what I saw on TV. That's what I
right.
saw in Hollywood, right? That's how people lead. Um, and I remember very distinctly one of my mentors at the time um, saying, Nick, it is okay to admit that you don't know what you don't know. And um, and I think that's a very common saying, but that wasn't who I was, because I felt like I needed to be somebody else. So this is
Right.
how every successful leader that I saw actually led. And that one phrase kind of connected the dots for me in terms of, okay, right, yeah, it's okay to be myself, right? It's okay to not admit that I know everything. As a matter of fact, it builds trust with the team.
Right.
Um, and really, that's where I failed. People did not trust me because they did not believe I was being authentic, uh,
Mm.
because I was trying to be somebody else that I really wasn't.
I love that. So I use that all the time. Now I've been in real estate 35 years and I've been coaching, and I always say that to the newer agents. You don't know what you don't know until you know. And I think it
Yeah.
takes a wise person to realize that, or someone, you were young. My last guest, he was young when he was leading by the iron fist, what you kind of are speaking about here. And once you learn to just be comfortable and to be authentic and engage with your people instead of lead them, as the boss, as we see on TV. So I love that. I just wanted to point that out. So, Marnie, you describe yourselves as leadership geeks, not gurus. Okay, I love that. What does that mean?
So we don't think we have all the answers, but again, you partner with Nick, you get to ask a lot of the right questions. And we love talking about it, asking questions about it, reading about it. So I believe the technical term is I've read a humping sum of leadership books along the way. Uh, so that's part of it is we're always learning more
Yes,
and
yes,
evolving our thoughts and kind of building on that and really finding as we talk to folks and hear their leadership stories, I'm sure you find the same thing in having this podcast, right? You're learning how
all the time.
good leadership elements play out for folks in all different kinds of industries. One of the things that we really started talking about in Lead It Like Lasso is leadership is life, and leadership happens in a locker room, a boardroom, a classroom, and a
Right.
living room. And so the more we talk about leadership and share stories with folks, they see how parenting is one of the most important leadership roles they'll ever have, that it's
Right.
not just in charge of others, and that you have to learn to lead yourself first in order to be successful leading in any of those other places. So that's what we say. We don't have a, okay, you're going to go lead a business and this is how you're going to do it. We more talk about the framework of getting to know yourself first, which is exactly what Nick talked about, that
Okay.
that's kind of the key element on learning more about how to lead yourself so you can lead others. So that's why the Geeks Not Gurus. We don't come in and mandate a framework. We like to talk about who
Right.
you are and figure out your own path. Right? We have a framework to follow on how to learn, which is not the same as saying this is exactly how you have to lead.
Right. So the book Lead It Like Lasso, is that right? Lead Like
Yeah.
Lasso. So do you have a framework you can share with us? A synopsis of or
So
framework
my
about
first
it?
question is, have you seen or heard of the television show Ted Lasso?
Yes.
Okay. So, one of the things that so Nick told me I had to watch Ted Lasso. It aired in the same 3 years that we happened to grow our software company. And
Okay.
what we loved about it is that Ted Lasso was a fish out of water, right? He was an American football coach who went to the UK to coach football, which is soccer. He knew nothing about it. Yet, through 3 very entertaining, hilarious seasons, we show that he is a great leader and coach. And so, what
Well,
when we paralleled that same path a bit, and what we learned is that the key to our framework is to start with core values and culture.
mm,
So, a lot of leadership textbooks, a lot of leadership trainings start with having a vision and a mission. But we found that if you really started with your core values and understood who you were, what your company
mm,
stood for, and how that played out in culture, that those were the elements that it was going to take. So we started there with our framework. There are a lot of elements of servant leadership that we use, but one of the ways, since the book was paralleling a soccer coach, a fictional soccer coach nonetheless,
uh-huh.
we defined it in terms of the rules, because every game has rules, right? So leadership has
Mhm,
some rules, so we have ours. The players, so that's critically important. We would say the people are the most important, right? The training or the practice. Leadership is a practice. It's not,
mhm.
you're not in it leadership. I say leadership is yoga, right? Like nobody comes in and says, I got first place in yoga. And you're never done.
Good.
You're always having
Right.
to yoga. And then there's the game and how it plays out in the real world. So that's kind of how we outline that. Nick, what do you say to that? Any more to add
Yeah.
to that?
Give us
Yeah,
maybe walk us through an example. Walk us through an example of someone, whether they're a family member, or someone who is leading a company, whatever it is, because I know this translates to many different people.
yeah,
And
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, and I'll start with the framework itself. I mean, Marnie talked about the fact that we start with core values, but then we quickly turn, to the importance of vision and strategy and goal setting. We
mm,
talk a lot about communication, right? The right ways to communicate, and specifically, especially in today's world in 2026, the ability to influence other people. So that's a key part of it. um, and then we roll into a couple of other areas, and Marnie, correct me where I miss them, but we talk about the importance of legacy, defining where you want to be end state and keeping those as guide rails, right, to your current day-to-day activities.
I
Um,
love that.
and and finally, we talk about Marnie, what's the one I'm missing? Sorry.
Networking, board of advisors.
Networking, board of advisors, um,
Mm,
uh, and adaptability and resilience. That's the one that is off the top of my head. But what we have found, and you mentioned at the top, 30,000 readers. We're up to 45,000
It's
folks in our
incredible.
community right now that have worked this. And what the reaction has been in terms of practical uses. I mean, we've had parents read this book and say, okay, this has helped me organize and approach how I raise my child. We've had true, district department, not district, schools. I went school wise for a second, but department heads, right, low level managers who have talked about the fact that, okay, I can't lead others until I learn how to lead myself first,
Mm,
right? So they've applied this framework to them individually, and then we've had senior leaders who have said, yes, I've already applied this. I'm in this senior leadership position, but it was a good status check and a good framework to follow in terms of how to kind of escalate that and promote that to a team level. Um, and the nice part about our book is, Marnie mentioned it, we got the practice in the games, but we have activities, right? We talk about when you're predicting, thinking about your legacy. Um, you know, it's not just, okay, what do I want my legacy to be? Put yourself in a situation, put yourself writing a retirement letter when you're,
right.
30 years from now when you're going to retire, or think, and this is a bit morbid, but think about your what's the word I'm looking
Obituary.
Eulogy.
for? Obituary,
Obituary. Yeah.
right? And what you want people to remember you by, and then back map to that to what you could actually accomplish. So, the resounding feedback that we get is, yeah, I like the fact that not only you said it, and you said it as normal people, and you kind of related it to the business world and to personalized feelings, but you also gave me something to do about it.
Right.
Through activities that were not boring, and not just didn't feel
Text.
like work.
It
Yeah,
was more
Yeah.
pointed. You actually gave them something that they can wrap their head around, not some
yeah,
big, huge, vague question that they had to
yeah.
come out. You gave them um, just little nudges. I can't think of the word, but you gave them some things to really think about that made it easier to break it down for them. I love that. Um, so how do you, where are you have 45,000 followers. Do you put this in a Facebook page? How is someone who's watching the show, they get your book, how do they become engaged with you and continue to learn from you and be part of your group?
So one of our favorite characters on Ted Lasso is Roy Kent, and the chant that they gave about Roy Kent, the soccer player, was "He's here, he's there, he's every effing where." So we say the same thing for our social media. So we're Lead It Like Lasso on social, so we're easy to find that way.
Oh,
We have the website leaditlikelasso.com, where we put a lot of resources for folks. So we have a weekly newsletter called Weekly
okay.
Curiosities, where every week we give Ted Lasso like leadership advice. So that is certainly one place where people stay engaged with us. It's fun to get the replies to the newsletter on what folks are thinking about the particular ideas of that week. And then we also have a Lead It Like Lasso rewatch podcast where we go through each episode of Ted
Oh,
Lasso,
okay.
but we review it in terms of a lens of leadership, which
Love that.
it's interesting because people say, I watched it 3 times and never looked at it that way. And then the second I've done a training on Lead It Like Lasso, now I can't unsee it. How did I miss it the first 3 times? But what's fascinating is Ted had his diamond dog, so his group of people that supported him. And
Okay.
we titled the book Lead It Like Lasso for marketing. But we really want folks to understand that they should learn to lead it like themselves and figure out who their characters are. And so that is one thing that we have an assessment on the website. So you can see which of the Ted Lasso characters that you are and what
Okay.
type of things you could do to lead more like them, build on your strengths and then grow from your weaknesses. So we have books we recommend, etc.
I love it. I love how you go back and break down the scenes. And I've watched it before, but now I'm gonna have to watch it. And it was kind of silly. So now I have to I
Yeah.
have to read the book, then watch it so I can really take full advantage. So how did you create a movement? What was the catalyst and how did you create this movement? And do you remember when it happened? And like, what was that aha?
Well, I have one thought, but I'm going to let Nick give the real answer after I give my thought. when we were writing the book about a fictional TV show that's a comedy, we clearly were not taking ourselves too seriously, although it's a serious leadership topic.
Right.
What we had seen out there was very academic types of folks that were doing research.
Hmm.
Like, we love Adam Grant and Brene Brown, and we love their work, but it is absolutely deep,
Right.
heavily researched, like reading a textbook. On the other hand, there are folks like Richard Branson and Oprah Winfrey that write leadership books, which seem impressive, and they are. But kind of the average human isn't looking at that thinking, yeah, I think I'm the next Richard Branson. So we
Right.
felt what we were aiming for was what Ted Lasso brought to the world: fun, easy, relatable, makes
Right.
you want to be better, and gives you small actionable things that you can do. So I think our approach is what made us and the book very approachable, which kind of starts people thinking, oh, I can do this, because I'm
Hmm.
not trying to be Oprah Winfrey. I'm trying to
Right.
lead as I am better. So that's my first take on it. Nick, what were you thinking?
Yeah, we have people reach out to us all the time. It's amazing how many cool people we've met, just by, I mean, we would never thought to sell 10 copies, never mind as many as we've done. And they talk about, wow, I was talking to so and so and they've read your book, and it's, the word movement is a big word for me. I would shy away from that a little bit, but I think Marnie's right. The thing about the show Ted Lasso is, when you watched it, you kind of felt better about yourself, and that's kind of, the like Marnie said, the feedback that we've gotten from people is, when I read this book, it's like I just watched the show. It wasn't like reading a book. And we've kind of taken that as kind of our thing, right? We've kind of made a boring topic, something that people don't really want to. It's superfluous. It's
Right.
hard to define what leadership is, and we've made it interesting for them. And if even some of the people say that, we're honored, flattered, and humbled that that's actually the case. But yeah, a movement, there are a lot more important movements in the world. I don't know if they would catalog ours as one.
Well, I love it. You have just given me so much information. You validated my book because I totally understand what you said about comparing yourself to a Brene Brown or an Oprah Winfrey. So my book, it's my fifth book, and this one is, the others were for me healing and things. It was kind of accidentally with purpose. My first four books happened. So this one, the mindset and motion method framework that I create, I was thinking it was more because I'm not those people. I'm not Oprah. I'm not Richard Branson. I don't strive to be. But then I wanted to be relatable, and I relate it in a sports game. So if you're watching a baseball game or a basketball game, that's how I break it down. And I was also doubting, like, well, do I have to? Because I do talk about the boardroom or the family. And so you guys have just validated my book, and I feel so much better.
I'm going to
Well,
say
now
you
you
validated our book, so thank
I
you.
think it
Yes, and
sounds very good for
I'm
people.
gonna send you my recap, and I mean, how successful you guys are and how many followers. So we have to go to a commercial break, but we'll be right back so we can continue this wonderful conversation with Nick and Marnie. We'll be right back.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like, it was almost instant. Like, I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical. Mike Zorich, a three-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a six-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2/3, and 2/4. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorich, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorich has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk.
Welcome back to Mastering the Art of Success. I'm your host, Debbie DiMaggio. We are here with Nick and Marnie. So I just love the whole concept about comparing it to a book, a show that's not real, but you're really drawing all these similarities in business and in life. So I can't wait to read the book. So you guys focus on community before content. Can you break that down and what does that mean? You also talk about leadership that was human and imperfect and values driven, and how your book became a catalyst, not the product.
So when we think of community, really leadership is all about the people. So
Right.
companies that are most successful know that rising tide lifts all ships. Ted Lasso's philosophy and my philosophy as a teacher, which is definitely the reason why Nick told me I had to watch Ted Lasso, was that it's not about wins and losses. It's about helping each person become the best version of themselves. And he knew that if he could help each player figure out who they were and then figure out who they could become, that would absolutely be better for the team. In the third episode, if you remember, Ted said there are some gifts up in y'all's lockers, and they were books. And the main
Okay.
character book paralleled who the character was and who the player could be. And so that's my first thought when it comes to the people in the community. Nick, what were you thinking when she said
Yeah,
that?
I think, one of our icons, somebody we look up to and who has quickly become a friend is Bob Berg. And I think you're familiar with
I love
Bob,
him.
Debbie.
Maybe he
Yeah.
referred us. That's
I
actually
think
probably
he
how
Yes,
we'll
had.
for
I
get
think
sure.
it.
that's where
Yeah,
we
yeah.
came. And we when we were in the last company that I was with Marnie, that we started up, that software company, we were really taken with his go-giver philosophy, right?
Yeah.
Providing the law of value, providing more
Right.
value to people than what they would actually pay for it. And to us, that's how we were successful with our company, starting it, scaling it, exiting from it. It's how we've been successful with the book, is trying to provide value to the community. So it's not just a book, right? We get out, we
Right.
communicate with people. People run book clubs with our books. We engage with them actively with, from our own time. We have this newsletter that is for free, that invites the community to participate and have a discussion with us. And I honestly cannot imagine us taking on any future initiative without thinking of community first, engaging
Right.
with them, getting their feedback, soliciting their, that feedback into what we're trying to do, which is ultimately to try to level set the playing field so as many people as possible can be their best versions. That is our North Star, right? Is how do we do that at scale, right? We're not gonna coach somebody for 10 to 15,000. There are plenty of coaches out
Right.
there, right? But not everybody can afford that. And to us, it's how we give back to community. As Bob Berg says, it will pay back, right? And we
Absolutely.
have seen that in action. And yeah, it pays back not just financially, but it pays back in making us feel really good about what we're offering. So absolutely, community is first and foremost in every new initiative that we take on.
Absolutely. Now I know why, because I definitely subscribe to people always say, you always do stuff for free. Why do you do that? I said, I don't know. It makes me feel good. But you know what I've learned over the years? It comes back to me in so many ways. I can't, some people are they want it to be like, this is because of that. I said, I can't do that for you. All I can say is I do it. I feel good. And something comes in some other way, some other form, and
It
it's
does.
something great. And so I truly believe that. So when we're growing and whatever we're doing, whether we're raising a family or we're starting a company, mistakes happen and we need those mistakes in order for us to learn. We can't learn without mistakes. What's the biggest leadership mistake you see today?
I I'll start here because I've made so many of them. I feel like I'm somewhat of
Hard to
an expert
believe where
on.
you're sitting now.
uh, I think it's, and we say mistake, and it's a mistake because I think there's a stat out there. It ranges between 68 and 82% of leaders today have had no formal training in
Mm,
leadership, right? And and what they do is they react to what they, again, what pop culture says a leader should be, right? So I think we've talked about the two biggest mistakes that I see. Number one is, if you're not leading yourself, right, you can't lead others. It's absolutely impossible because you lose trust in the team. So I think trying to be somebody else that you think you should be as a leader is a mistake that we see over and over and over again. Um, and then I think the second thing, which is a cousin of it, right, is kind of defaulting to that command and control type leadership. And I'm not here to say that there's never a time
right,
to kind of lay down the law. There is absolutely a time when there's total chaos, somebody needs to take control of things, right? But that is for quick wins and it's temporary. The long-term successful leaders do it through servant leadership, growing others as opposed to dictating others, right? And that takes longer to do, so it doesn't hit you know, this immediate satisfaction thing that we all need these days. But it also lasts a lot longer. And what we typically find is those leaders that are successful being command and controlled right out of the gate end up crashing and burning relatively quickly. And again, I speak from experience. But Marnie, what did I miss there? I'm sure there's other
So
mistakes.
the two things came to mind, and one you kind of mentioned. One was like this self-awareness piece is one of the top predictors of leadership success, and that's a Harvard Business Review idea, not our idea. So knowing yourself first, like the mistake is not thinking you need to understand how to lead yourself first and before you lead others. The other thing that comes to mind is people just drift and are stuck and therefore don't take action. So they are just blindly following the path that has been put in front of them. We see
right,
this a lot with the high schoolers and college students that we work with, where they're just doing what they've been told to do, and they have never taken the opportunity to reflect on what they want to do and who they are. So a lot of times what we see around career development is job development, as opposed to figuring out who you are that might really turn into a career that you're passionate about. So
right.
same thing with leaders. They're just following this path instead of realizing that they're not leading their own path.
It sounds like from what you're saying and why you have a business and the person that I interviewed last week, that people, because I'm in real estate, I've always been my own boss, so I've never been in an office situation or you go up. It seems like there's not really training. People get promoted, but they kind of get promoted and okay, you're the boss now, you're the CEO. Like, is there no training that's offered? And I mean, you guys have been at other companies. Nick, you've certainly been at other companies. How do these people get trained, or what might change in order to train these people to lead?
Well, I think
There's
that's what we're certainly trying to address. There's a gap in the market for
Hmm.
sure. I mean, we talk a lot about accidental leaders, right? People who just got promoted into a
Yeah,
leadership position. And absolutely, the bigger companies out there, they have formalized training initiatives and plans that are very structured. But you know what? most people don't work for those large companies. Most people
Right.
work small to
That's true.
medium-sized businesses. And that's just, whether right, wrong, or indifferent, that is not a priority when you're trying to manage your cash flow and
Right.
meet payroll, on a fairly consistent basis. And it should be. And
Right.
I think every small and medium-sized business leader will tell you that it should be, but it ends up not being because, I mean, especially in today's world, things are changing constantly,
So
right? You're
fast.
having to react to that. So,
Right.
so that's where we see the gap, right? And where do people turn? They turn a lot to either online courses or to books, and then they read the books and they're like, oh, this isn't me. This is textbooky, right?
Right.
This is not my position. This is
Right.
not where I'm at. So that's where I think, where we find the gap is, how do we deliver this information in a relatable way where people are interested in reading it and can actually apply it to what they're doing.
Wonderful. That it's so true because companies are tech companies, especially, and all these companies, they grow, and they're growing so fast. They're just trying to fill in the basics of what they need to figure
Yeah.
out the company, not to who's going to lead it. And that's why we have people who launch the company, are the head of the company, and then the company below them takes down the leader
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they're not leading. So before we go into your next book, um, I think mentorship is so important. And I think a lot of people think that they can do it themselves, or they don't want to take the time, or they don't want to basically invest the time, or they don't want to, they think, oh, I'll do it on my own. Share your mentors, a mentor or two, and what they provided to you.
Oh, I can think of many along the way. The most critical one is on the call with me right now because I learned, in Ted Lasso's Diamond Dog, Nick is my diamond dog for sure in terms of making me better. So I think when I think of mentors and diamond dogs, first, the critical piece to think about is that they are both a fan and a critic, right? They're willing to ask the
Mhm.
tough questions, and you've built the trust so that you can hear the answer in a way that will make you better. So Nick for sure is my top there. I have had others along the way that I can think of that would be willing to say, I can remember an assistant superintendent when I first became mass supervisor of a school system who said, Marnie, you're if you want it done right, do it yourself kind of girl, but that's not going to scale. What you
Right.
need to learn to do is figure out how to build capacity in others so that you trust to delegate. And so that was definitely one lesson that I learned through having a mentor. I
Mhm.
end up mentoring a lot of students, and what's interesting is in doing that, I typically end up just having to help them figure out who they are for themselves so that they can then do the growth. Nick, how about you?
No, I would agree, and I've talked about it. First of all, you said name some names, so I'll name drop Gary Giles, Trey Stanford, a couple of mentors very early on who, like Marnie said, they were they were honest with me, right? They were not
Right.
afraid to to be constructive, but also show me, okay, there are things we can do to work through these things, right? And I think mentors do that. They hold you accountable. They're honest. They're open to listen, right? And sometimes you disagree with them, sometimes you don't. I think the other things that mentors do is that's critically important is they have already chartered the path, so to speak. So they give you kind of this vision and these lesson learned through their experiences. And if I can, on that note, and Marnie mentioned that she does a lot of mentoring, and I've done mentoring as well. And I think flipping the coin over, as a mentor, we call it reverse mentoring, right? It's important to be a mentor to other people because you gain such a new perspective that you might have
Absolutely.
forgotten and you might have lost, or that has might have,
Yes.
might have completely changed because the generational shift, right? I'm
Right.
in my mid 50s right now, and when working with high school, college students, or people in their young 20s, they have a completely different mindset that I don't relate to. So I am learning,
Right.
actually. almost as much taking on a mentoring role now as being the mentee of when I was their age. So I think mentoring is critically important on both sides of the spectrum, and I think the world needs a lot more people to kind of step up and help other people. And I think if they realize that they'll get as much out of it as much as
Mm.
they give, um, I think that's a very important point to remember, at least in my case.
Again, I'm in 100% agreement. Every time I'm coaching my new agent who's part of our real estate team, I love working with her because oftentimes people want to be mentored, but they fall through the cracks. They don't hold themselves accountable. I'm trying
Mm,
to get better about helping people who want to be helped because first of all, people all want to be successful, but they don't always want to follow what they need to do to get there. So I will say Sydney, she's wonderful. I gave her my time every Tuesday at 1 o'clock. We meet. I'm not going to chase you. I will be here for you if you want. So I'm trying to get better about boundaries and also to get them to follow through. So, but like you just said, Nick, so when I'm speaking with her and giving her all the list of things and we're going through her to-do lists for the next time we meet, I'm taking notes for myself going, I need to implement that. I need to implement that. Yes, I might be much busier than her, but I still need to implement the basics. So I think 100% mentor
perfect.
mentee, it's a benefit for both. Okay, we're getting close to the end and we have so much to talk about. Who is the business of you for your other book? And I don't know how new it is.
Well, the irony of it is the main character in that book is named Sydney, and it would be for
Oh,
so I thought, wait a minute, what's going on here? And you described the person really. So we wrote
wow.
so just launched in August. So it
Okay,
is fairly new book. And we wrote that as a business fable, similar to Bob Burke's books. So
okay,
it is a story as opposed to lessons, the way we
right.
did the Lasso book. And it is the story of a student who's done all the right things, taken the classes, done the
Mm,
club, done the internships, but hasn't figured out who they are. So they don't really know who they want to be. They're not getting a job, etc.
mm-hmm.
And along the way, interestingly enough, she runs into a magic mentor. So mentors are a big part of the book. And that mentor introduces her to the notion that she is the CEO of Sydney Incorporated. She is already the boss of herself, whether she realizes it or not. And he takes her through the different departments that would be in the business of you. You are in charge of your finances, you are in charge of how you invest your time.
Wow,
You are the head of your own marketing, whether you do anything with that or not.
right.
And that he hands her an app called Blue, and Blue helps her gamify and play games to figure out her core values and her
Mm.
strengths, weaknesses, personal operating system, etc. And at the end of the book, you find out that we're building that app. So that is a
Oh, that's awesome. I love it. Oh my gosh. Well, I have to get the book for Sydney. What a great and storytelling, as we know, is so powerful. So you've created this book of a story that people can implement. It's just in a different format. So congratulations to you. Any other, before I ask a bunch of rapid fire questions, anything else you want to talk about with this new book because it's just came out?
Yeah, I mean, I think the it's been crazy. The reception, we get a lot of parents who said, "Oh my gosh, this is exactly what my 22-year-old or my
Yeah,
18-year-old was struggling with. They were struggling how to communicate their value. They were struggling how to find the right people to surround themselves with." And the fact that it was written in, as you said, storytelling is so powerful, right? It's 22 times
yeah,
more effective than just reciting facts. Um, it's we're so pleased, and because we talk about helping people at scale lead themselves. We're so pleased to have something that actually speaks to young people, this next generation of people. So the only other thing we'd like to share is if you know somebody who's that age, late teens to mid 20s, it's really a book that people have received very well, and it's helped open their eyes on a bunch of things.
It's so great because that is the needed generation. It's just time is moving so fast and so many things are coming at us. And there's the basics, like you said, marketing, finances. We don't learn, certainly don't learn finances in school. That we are the we wear that hat as well. So let's go into some rapid fire questions. Okay, a leadership buzzword you secretly can't stand.
Leadership buzzword. I can stand so many of them. Let me just.
Well, so clarity is one that you see, like you can't throw a rock at LinkedIn without seeing clarity listed. I
Okay,
think because it's AI's buzzword right now. So it mainly bothers me because I don't think people are clear on what they're trying to help folks be clear about.
right.
So I think
Yeah,
the concept of clarity
is
critically
good.
important. I think the
Right.
way it's bandied about exhausts me.
Right. Good. The best idea you almost ignored.
Uh, I'll speak for Marnie when I said we should leave this company we're working for and try to see if we can start a company ourselves. She almost ignored me on that one.
Oh,
I'm gonna say that is
And how long have you been working together, the two of you?
how many is 13, 14
I
years
think
now?
13 years, yeah, and then we started our own company together 6, 7 years ago. But 8 years ago, I guess now. So, we started working together for 13 years ago.
I love it. One habit you wish you'd started earlier.
Oh, stretch.
Self-reflection.
What'd you say? Wait, start again. You said it at the same time.
I said stretching.
Yes, that's a good one. That's a good one.
That is a good one. I would say self-reflection, and I think people don't do it if you're anything like me
Right,
because it's awkward to think about yourself and really analyze uh,
right.
uh, the good and bad.
What people overcomplicate the most at work.
Oh, just taking the next step.
Right.
People will perseverate. We talk about defeating the blank page as a big rule. You have to just implement. That's one of our top rules ourselves. We say it all the time. We're just going to defeat the blank page, get something out there and edit it. So they just don't do the next thing. They just procrastinate, perseverate.
Right.
I think a lot of companies these days overcomplicate communication.
Yes.
I
Just
mean, they
get it
have
out there, right?
18 different ways to communicate, and they don't. To us, the key with communication is expectation. Make sure you understand how somebody likes to be communicated with, and they
Hmm.
understand how you like to be communicated with, um, and and make sure that's in alignment with the organization itself. And I think we try to do it through direct chats and Slack channels and email and Zoom calls and you know th- the more isn't always better. And I think
Right.
a lot of workplaces default to more to try to improve communication. They overcomplicate it.
Yeah, I think that's good. A skill everyone should build before chasing a title.
Oh, that's self-reflection. I think that, yeah,
Yeah,
they need to be
I
able
would.
to, yeah.
I'll take. I think resilience, and I think,
Hmm.
but by that I mean uh, you need to learn how to take risks and deal with failure and how to. And you don't have to do that in a leadership position. Actually, you shouldn't do it in a
Right.
leadership position, right? You should
Right.
find ways to fail because there's no such thing as failure. It's just feedback, right?
Exactly.
And you need to be comfortable. That's a practice that you have to take on because you're going to fail and you're going to have to be resilient in a leadership position.
Absolutely. The most useful feedback you ever received.
For sure, the when Carol Visitainer told me that I need to learn to delegate, and not do
Yeah,
everything myself
that's
was,
me.
I mean,
Yes.
I heard that one loud and clear. Another mentor, Justin Serrano, really taught brainstorming as a strategy for a company,
Mm,
which I think is critically important. Um, And then, I mean, Ted Lasso, be curious, not judgmental.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So for each of you, the last question is, what would you have told your 25 or 20-year-old self when you were, I mean, people are starting so young these days, but for me, this podcast is about me addressing how I felt at 25, completely lost, had no idea what I was going to do in my life. Thought there was a magic, go to Cal Berkeley, get a degree, have this job. That's exactly what I want to do the rest of my life. What would you tell your 25-year-old self?
I would say find out what makes you tick, what drives you, and then find a way to allow that to enable that so you can add value to some other subset of people. I think those are the things that make you the happiest and which will allow the most success.
Absolutely. Marnie?
I agree with that. I will add to it that you don't always have to be right, and that you can be a little vulnerable. I was terrible about that when I was 25 for sure, especially being a 25-year-old teacher of 18-year-olds. I for sure you never let him see a sweat category. I never did.
Oh my God, you were so young. Okay, you guys, how does someone work with you? Do you coach as well, one-on-one? How do people get into your vortex?
So info@leaditlikelasso.com is the easy way to find us. We do workshops, keynotes, presentations. We don't do individual coaching, but we do have a waiting list for folks that want access to Blue, which is the app that we're building. So you can find us at that same email.
Okay.
And we can chat about that. Nick, what you got
No,
that
you got it
firm?
all. Yeah, no, that's perfect.
Well, thank you guys so much for being on the show. I can't wait to continue the conversation, and I will go on your website. I will order your book for myself and for Sydney.
Awesome.
Um,
Well, thanks so much for having us. This is a great
Thanks,
chat.
Debbie.
Thank you guys.
Tune in each week for another episode of Mastering the Art of Success with host Debbie DiMaggio. Thursdays, 2 p.m. Eastern. Real stories, real strategies, real success.